The cold asphalt scraped against my skin as I hit the ground hard, my body rolling twice before coming to a stop on the side of the dark road. Pain shot through my arms and legs, but it was nothing compared to the shock of what had just happened. My own husband had just pushed me out of his moving truck. "Don't worry. The coyotes will find her faster than the cops." Marcus's cruel voice echoed in the night air as his truck sped away, the red taillights getting smaller and smaller until they disappeared completely into the darkness. I lay there for a moment, trying to catch my breath and understand what had just happened. The laughter of his friends, Tony, Rick, and Steve, still rang in my ears. They had been laughing. Actually laughing as Marcus shoved me out onto this empty road in the middle of nowhere. My hands were shaking as I slowly pushed myself up to sitting. Blood trickled down my left arm where the asphalt had torn through my skin. My favorite blue dress, the one Marcus had bought me for our first anniversary, was now ripped and dirty. But the physical pain was nothing compared to the crushing weight in my chest. How did I get here? How did the man who once brought me flowers every Friday become someone who could leave me stranded on a deserted road at midnight? I looked around, trying to figure out where I was. The road stretched endlessly in both directions, with nothing but desert and darkness on either side. No houses, no lights, no cars. Just me and the sound of wind rustling through the dry bushes. My phone. I needed my phone. I frantically searched my small purse, but my hands were shaking so badly I could barely open it. When I finally found my phone, my heart sank. No signal, not even one bar. That's when I heard it. A long, haunting howl in the distance. Then another one, closer this time. Marcus's words came flooding back. "The coyotes will find her faster than the cops." Fear shot through my body like ice water. I had to move. I had to get out of here. I forced myself to stand up, wincing as pain shot through my scraped knees. My legs felt weak and shaky, but I started walking toward what I hoped was the direction of town. Each step sent sharp pains through my body, but I kept going. As I walked, my mind raced back to earlier that evening. We had been at dinner with his friends and everything seemed normal. Marcus had been drinking, but that wasn't unusual anymore. His friends were being their usual loud, obnoxious selves, making jokes that weren't really funny and talking about people they didn't like. But then something changed. Marcus started getting that look in his eyes, the one I had learned to fear over the past few months. The look that meant he was angry about something, and that anger was about to explode. It started when the waitress smiled at me and asked if I needed anything else. Such a simple, innocent question. But Marcus saw it differently. He always saw things differently when he was drinking. "She thinks she's better than us," he had muttered to his friends, loud enough for me to hear, always acting so perfect, so innocent. I had tried to ignore it, tried to change the subject, but Marcus wouldn't let it go. His friends joined in, making comments about how I was too good for their group, how I looked down on them. None of it was true. I had never looked down on anyone. But when Marcus got an idea in his head, especially when he was drinking, there was no reasoning with him. The argument continued in the truck. Marcus driving faster and faster as his anger grew, his friends egging him on from the back seat, telling him he needed to put me in my place and show me who's boss. I should have seen it coming. I should have known that this night would be different. But I never imagined he would actually hurt me like this. Another howl echoed through the night, much closer now. I picked up my pace, ignoring the pain in my legs. I had to survive this night. I had to make it home. But as I walked through the darkness, bleeding and alone, I realized something that chilled me more than the desert wind. I wasn't sure I had a home to go back to anymore. As I limped down that dark road, my mind drifted back to a time when everything felt perfect. 4 years ago, when I first met Marcus at the hospital charity gala. I was 24 then, working as a nurse and barely able to afford the ticket to the event. But my friend Lisa had convinced me to go. "You work too hard, Emma," she had said. "You need to get out and have some fun for once." I remember standing by the refreshment table in my simple black dress, the only formal dress I owned, feeling completely out of place among all the wealthy donors in their expensive gowns and suits. That's when I saw him. Marcus was across the room, tall and handsome in his perfectly fitted tuxedo. He had this confident smile and was talking to a group of important-looking people. but then our eyes met, and everything else seemed to disappear. He walked straight over to me, ignoring everyone else in the room. "Hi," he said, his voice warm and gentle. "I'm Marcus, and you're the most beautiful woman here tonight." I felt my cheeks turn red. No one had ever said anything like that to me before. "I'm Emma," I managed to say. "Emma," he repeated, like he was testing how my name sounded. "That's a beautiful name for a beautiful woman." We talked for hours that night. Marcus told me about his construction business, how he had built it from nothing into something successful. He asked about my work at the hospital, and he actually seemed interested in my answers. He didn't look bored or change the subject like other guys usually did. "You're amazing," he said as the evening was ending. "You spend your days helping people, saving lives. That's incredible." When he asked for my number, I couldn't believe it. This successful, handsome man wanted to see me again. Our first date was like something from a movie. Marcus picked me up in his expensive car and took me to the fanciest restaurant in town. I had never been anywhere so elegant. The waiters wore white gloves, and the menu didn't even have prices on it. "Order whatever you want," Marcus said, smiling at me across the candlelit table. "Nothing's too good for you." I felt like Cinderella. Here was this Prince Charming who wanted to spoil me and make me feel special. The gifts started right away. Flowers delivered to the hospital where I worked. Expensive jewelry that I protested was too much, but Marcus insisted I deserved. Designer clothes that cost more than I made in a month. "I want to take care of you," he would say whenever I tried to refuse his gifts. "Let me show you how a woman should be treated." My mother was thrilled when I brought Marcus home to meet my family. She had been worried about me working so much and never dating anyone seriously. "He's perfect, mija," she whispered to me in the kitchen while Marcus charmed my father with stories about his business. "He clearly adores you." Even my brother James, who was usually suspicious of any guy I dated, seemed impressed. "He's successful, he treats you well, and he makes you happy," James said. "What more could you want?" Marcus proposed exactly 1 year after we met, at the same charity gala where we first saw each other. He had arranged for the entire event to stop, while he got down on one knee in front of hundreds of people. "Emma Rodriguez," he said, his voice carrying across the silent room. "You've made this the best year of my life. Will you marry me?" The ring was enormous, a diamond so big I was almost embarrassed to wear it, but Marcus insisted I deserved the best of everything. "Say yes!" someone shouted from the crowd, and soon everyone was chanting it. I was crying happy tears as I said yes. Marcus swept me up in his arms and spun me around while everyone applauded. I felt like the luckiest woman in the world. Our wedding was everything I had dreamed of as a little girl. Marcus spared no expense. The dress, the flowers, the venue, everything was perfect. As we danced our first dance as husband and wife, Marcus whispered in my ear, "I'm going to spend the rest of my life making you happy." I believed him completely. Standing on that dark road now, bleeding and abandoned, I wondered how that loving man had turned into someone who could hurt me so badly. When did the fairy tale become a nightmare? The first few months of marriage felt like an extension of our perfect courtship. Marcus continued to shower me with gifts and attention. He would surprise me with weekend trips to expensive resorts and romantic dinners at places I had only dreamed of visiting. But looking back now, as I walked through the cold desert night, I could see the warning signs I had missed. It started with small comments that seemed harmless at first. "That dress makes you look a little heavy, honey," Marcus would say with a concerned smile. "Maybe try the blue one instead." Or, "Your hair looks better when you wear it down. The ponytail makes you look too young." I thought he was just trying to help me look my best. After all, he had such good taste and knew about fashion and style. I started changing my appearance based on his suggestions, thinking I was lucky to have a husband who cared so much about how I looked. Then came the comments about my work. "You're always so tired when you come home from those long shifts," Marcus would say. "Maybe you should ask for fewer hours. I make enough money to support us both." When I explained that I loved my job and wanted to help people, Marcus would nod and smile. "Of course, sweetheart. I just worry about you working so hard. You're too good for that place anyway." The first time I felt truly uncomfortable was about 6 months after our wedding. I had been invited to my coworker Sarah's birthday party and I was excited to go. But when I told Marcus about it, his expression changed. "You want to spend your Saturday night with those people instead of with your husband?" he asked, his voice getting colder. "It's just for a few hours," I said. "You could come with me if you want." "I don't want to spend my weekend with a bunch of nurses gossiping about hospital drama," Marcus replied. "I thought you'd rather stay home with me." I ended up not going to the party. Marcus was so sweet that night, cooking dinner for me and telling me how much he loved having me all to himself. I felt guilty for even wanting to go out with my friends. That's when his friends started coming around more often. Tony, Rick, and Steve would show up at our house almost every weekend, bringing cases of beer and staying until very late. They were loud and crude, making jokes that made me uncomfortable. "Emma's too classy for our humor," Tony would say with a laugh when I didn't react to one of their inappropriate stories. "She thinks she's better than us regular folks." "No, I don't," I would protest, but they would just laugh harder. Marcus never defended me during these moments. Instead, he would join in their laughter and sometimes add his own comments. "Emma's just sensitive," he would say. "She's not used to how real men talk." I started spending those evenings in our bedroom, claiming I had work to do or was tired. But I could hear them downstairs, their voices getting louder as they drank more. Sometimes I would hear my name mentioned, followed by laughter that made my stomach turn. The drinking became more frequent. Marcus had always enjoyed a few beers, but now he was drinking every night. His personality would change completely when he drank. The charming, attentive man I married would disappear, replaced by someone cold and critical. "You're gaining weight," he said one night after several beers. "I can see it in your face." "I haven't gained any weight," I replied, confused and hurt. "Don't argue with me, Emma. I have eyes. Maybe you should start going to the gym instead of sitting around the house all the time." I had never been inactive. Between my job at the hospital and taking care of our home, I was constantly busy. But Marcus's words made me doubt myself. Maybe I was getting lazy. Maybe I wasn't taking good enough care of myself. The isolation happened so gradually that I didn't notice it at first. Marcus would find reasons why we couldn't visit my family. He was too busy with work, or he wasn't feeling well, or he had made other plans. When my brother James called to check on me, Marcus would answer the phone and tell him I was sleeping or busy. "Your family doesn't understand our relationship," Marcus explained when I asked why he always made excuses. "They still see you as their little girl instead of my wife." The first time Marcus put his hands on me, I was so shocked I convinced myself it didn't really happen. We had been married for almost 2 years, and I was getting ready for my shift at the hospital. I was running late because Marcus had kept me up arguing the night before about something I couldn't even remember anymore. "You look terrible," Marcus said as I rushed around trying to find my keys. "Your patients are going to think the hospital hired a homeless person." "I'm just tired," I said, checking my reflection in the hallway mirror. I did look exhausted. The dark circles under my eyes seemed to be permanent now. "Maybe if you didn't stay up all night arguing with me, you'd look better," Marcus said, his voice getting that edge I had learned to fear. "I wasn't arguing," I said quietly. "I was just trying to explain." "Don't lie to me, Emma." Marcus stepped closer, and I could smell the alcohol on his breath, even though it was only 7 in the morning. "You love to argue. You love to make me look stupid." "That's not true," I said, backing toward the door. "I would never—" That's when he grabbed my arm. Hard. His fingers dug into my skin so tightly I gasped in pain. "Don't you ever call me a liar again," he said, his face inches from mine. "Do you understand me?" I nodded, too scared to speak. Marcus held my arm for a few more seconds, his grip getting tighter, before he suddenly let go and walked away like nothing had happened. I stood there shaking, staring at the red marks his fingers had left on my arm. But by the time I got to work, I had convinced myself it was an accident. Marcus had been drinking, and he was stressed about work. He didn't mean to hurt me. That night, Marcus brought me flowers and apologized. "I'm so sorry, baby," he said, holding me close. "I've been under so much pressure at work. I would never hurt you on purpose. You know that, right?" I wanted to believe him so badly. This was the Marcus I had fallen in love with, gentle and caring and sorry for his mistakes. I know, I whispered into his chest. I love you. I love you too, he said. More than anything. I just get crazy sometimes when I think about losing you. But the accidents kept happening. A shove when I disagreed with him, a grip on my wrist that left bruises, a push that sent me stumbling into the wall. Each time Marcus would apologize and blame his stress, his drinking, or my behavior. You know how to push my buttons, Emma, he would say after hurting me. You know exactly what to say to make me angry. I started walking on eggshells, trying to predict what would set him off. I stopped expressing opinions that might contradict his. I agreed with everything he said, even when I knew he was wrong. I became a ghost in my own home, trying to be invisible so I wouldn't accidentally make him angry. His friends Tony, Rick, and Steve started treating me worse too. They would make comments about my appearance, my job, and my family right in front of Marcus. When I looked to my husband for support, he would either laugh along with them or ignore what was happening completely. Emma's family thinks they're so much better than us, Rick said one night while they were all drinking in our living room. Her brother acts like he's some big shot lawyer. James is still in law school, I said quietly, trying to defend my brother. See? Tony laughed. She can't help herself. Always has to correct us stupid construction workers. Maybe Emma needs to learn some respect, Steve added, looking directly at Marcus. Marcus didn't say anything. He just took another drink and changed the subject. But I saw the look that passed between them, and it made my blood run cold. I started making excuses to avoid being home when his friends came over. I would pick up extra shifts at the hospital or claim I had errands to run. But Marcus noticed, and he didn't like it. You're avoiding my friends, he accused me one night. You think you're too good for them. No, I don't, I said. You just what? Marcus stepped closer and I instinctively backed away. You just think you're better than the people who helped me build my business? I could see the anger building in his eyes, and I knew what was coming next. 3 months ago, I discovered something that changed my entire world. I was late, not just a few days late, 2 weeks late. At first, I tried to convince myself it was just stress. My life with Marcus had become so unpredictable that my body was probably just reacting to the constant fear and tension. But deep down, I knew. I had always been regular as clockwork, and this was different. I bought the pregnancy test on my way home from work, hiding it in my purse like it was something shameful. My hands were shaking as I took the test in the hospital bathroom during my break. I couldn't risk Marcus finding it at home. 2 pink lines. Positive. I stared at that little plastic stick for what felt like hours, my mind racing. A baby. Marcus and I were going to have a baby. For the first time in months, I felt a spark of hope. Maybe this would change everything. Maybe becoming a father would bring back the gentle, loving man I had married. Maybe a baby would make Marcus want to be better, to stop drinking, to stop hurting me. I spent the rest of my shift daydreaming about telling him the news. I imagined his face lighting up with joy, imagined him holding me and promising to be the best father in the world. I pictured us painting a nursery together, picking out baby names, and being a real family. But when I got home that night, Marcus was already drunk. He was sitting in his chair with an empty beer bottle in his hand, and I could tell by his expression that he was in one of his dark moods. "You're late," he said without looking at me. "I had to finish some paperwork," I lied. I had actually spent an hour sitting in my car in the hospital parking lot, trying to work up the courage to come home. "Sure you did," Marcus said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "Paperwork? Is that what you call it when you flirt with those doctors?" "Marcus, I need to tell you something," I said, deciding to just get it over with. "Something important." He finally looked at me, his eyes cold and unfocused. "What now, Emma? What did I do wrong this time?" "You didn't do anything wrong," I said, sitting down across from him. "It's good news, really good news." I took a deep breath and smiled, trying to recapture some of the joy I had felt earlier. "I'm pregnant, Marcus. We're going to have a baby." The silence that followed was deafening. Marcus just stared at me, his expression completely blank. Then slowly, his face began to change. But it wasn't joy I saw there. It was anger. "You're what?" he said, his voice dangerously quiet. "Pregnant," I repeated, my smile fading. "We're going to be parents." Marcus stood up so quickly that his chair fell backward. "Are you out of your mind?" he shouted. "A baby? Now? When everything is finally going well for us?" "But Marcus," I said, standing up too, "this is wonderful. We always talked about having children someday." "Someday?" he yelled. "Not now. I'm not ready for this, Emma. I'm not ready to have some screaming kid ruining my life." "It won't ruin anything," I said, tears starting to form in my eyes. "It'll make everything better. We'll be a family." "A family?" Marcus laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You think bringing a baby into this mess will fix our problems? You think I want to be tied down with a kid right now?" "I thought you'd be happy," I whispered. "Well, you thought wrong," Marcus said. "You need to take care of this, Emma. You need to get rid of it." The words hit me like a physical blow. "What?" "You heard me. Get rid of it. We're not having a baby." "No," I said, my voice stronger than I felt. "No, Marcus. This is our child." "It's not a child," he said coldly. "It's a mistake, and you're going to fix it." "I won't do that," I said, backing away from him. "I won't hurt our baby." That's when Marcus grabbed me by the shoulders and shook me hard. "You'll do what I tell you to do," he said through gritted teeth. "You're my wife and you'll obey me." "Let go of me," I said, trying to pull away. Instead, Marcus pushed me backward. I stumbled and fell, hitting my hip hard against the coffee table. Pain shot through my side, and I instinctively put my hands over my stomach, protecting the tiny life growing inside me. "That's just a taste of what'll happen if you don't listen to me," Marcus said, standing over me. "Get rid of it, Emma, or I'll get rid of it for you." What Marcus didn't know was that I had been planning my escape for weeks. The pregnancy had given me the courage I needed to finally take action, but I wasn't going to run away like a scared victim. I was going to make sure Marcus could never hurt me or anyone else again. It started 3 weeks after I told him about the baby. Marcus had pushed me so hard that I fell down the stairs, and I ended up in the emergency room with bruised ribs. That's when my friend, Dr. Lisa Chen, pulled me aside. "Emma, this has to stop," she said, her voice filled with concern. "He's going to kill you if you don't get away from him." "I can't just leave," I whispered, looking around to make sure no one could hear us. "He'll find me. He always says he'll find me if I try to leave. Then we make sure he can't," Lisa said firmly. "I have a friend who can help us, someone who knows how to handle situations like this." That's how I met Detective Sarah Williams. Sarah had been my friend in high school, but we had lost touch over the years. When Lisa contacted her and explained my situation, Sarah immediately agreed to help. "We need evidence," Sarah explained during our secret meeting at a coffee shop across town. "Real evidence that will put him away for a long time. Are you willing to do what it takes?" I thought about my unborn baby, about the bruises covering my body, about the fear that had become my constant companion. "Yes," I said, "I'll do whatever it takes." Sarah gave me a small recording device that looked like a regular button on my shirt. "Wear this every day," she said. "Record everything. His threats, his violence, everything." For 2 weeks, I gathered evidence. I recorded Marcus threatening to hurt me if I didn't get rid of the problem. I recorded him telling his friends Tony, Rick, and Steve about how he was going to teach me a lesson about respect. I recorded him planning what he called the perfect way to scare sense into her. The hardest part was acting normal while I was secretly building a case against him. I had to pretend to be the same scared, submissive wife, while inside I was becoming stronger and more determined every day. "He's planning something big," I told Sarah during one of our meetings. "He keeps talking to his friends about taking me somewhere to straighten me out. I think he's going to try to really hurt me soon." "Then we need to be ready," Sarah said. "Are you sure you want to go through with this? It's going to be dangerous." "I'm already in danger every day," I replied. "At least this way, it ends with him in prison instead of me in the ground." The plan was simple but risky. I would pack a bag and leave it where Marcus would find it, making him think I was trying to run away. This would trigger his anger and force him to act. Sarah would have police units positioned along all the roads leading out of town, and I would wear a GPS tracker so they could find me no matter where Marcus took me. The recording device will capture everything he says and does, Sarah explained. With the GPS tracking and multiple witnesses, we'll have enough evidence to put him away for attempted murder, kidnapping, and domestic violence. The night of the plan, I was terrified but determined. I deliberately left the packed bag in our bedroom closet, where Marcus would see it when he came home from drinking with his friends. I knew exactly how he would react. Sure enough, Marcus found the bag and exploded with rage. "You think you can leave me?" he screamed, grabbing me by the hair. "You think you can take my child and run away?" "Please, Marcus," I said, making sure my voice was loud enough for the recording device to pick up. "I wasn't leaving. I was just—" "Don't lie to me," he yelled. "You're trying to betray me, just like I told the guys you would." He called Tony, Rick, and Steve, and within an hour they were all at our house, drinking and planning my punishment. I sat quietly, recording every word as they discussed taking me somewhere remote where no one would hear her scream. As Marcus forced me into his truck with his friends, I touched the small GPS tracker hidden in my bra. Sarah and her team were watching. They knew exactly where I was. For the first time in months, I wasn't afraid. I was taking control. As I walked down that dark road, I could see headlights approaching in the distance. But these weren't just any headlights. They were the flashing red and blue lights I had been waiting for. Detective Sarah Williams and her team had been tracking my GPS signal the entire time. The police car surrounded me within minutes, and Sarah jumped out of the lead vehicle. "Emma, are you okay?" she called out, rushing to my side. "I'm fine," I said, though I was shaking from cold and adrenaline. "Did you get everything?" "Every word," Sarah said with a grim smile. "The recording device worked perfectly. We have Marcus and his friends on tape planning and executing kidnapping, assault, and attempted murder." As the paramedics checked my injuries, Sarah explained what was happening. "We arrested Tony, Rick, and Steve about 10 minutes after they dropped you off. They're already talking, trying to save themselves by blaming everything on Marcus." Meanwhile, Marcus had returned home feeling proud of what he had done. He was probably sitting in his living room, drinking a beer and laughing with satisfaction about teaching me a lesson. He had no idea that his entire world was about to collapse. When Marcus walked into our bedroom, he found not one letter, but 5 envelopes spread across our bed. Each one would destroy a different part of his life. The first envelope contained a letter from me. Inside, I had written everything I wanted to say, but never had the courage to tell him. "Marcus, by the time you read this, you'll be under arrest for kidnapping, assault, and attempted murder. For months, I've been recording every threat, every act of violence, every cruel word you've spoken. The police have everything. Your friends have already confessed and blamed you for tonight's events. You always said I was weak, but you were wrong. I was gathering strength, and now I'm using it to make sure you can never hurt me or anyone else again." The second envelope was from his construction company. His business partners had received copies of the recordings, where Marcus bragged about abusing his wife. The letter informed him that he was being removed from the company immediately, and that they were pursuing legal action to recover their investments. The third envelope contained a letter from his wealthy parents. They had also heard the recordings and were horrified by their son's behavior. The letter stated that they were cutting off his trust fund, removing him from their will, and never wanted to see him again. The fourth envelope was from a divorce attorney I had secretly hired weeks ago. The papers inside informed Marcus that I was filing for divorce, seeking a restraining order, and would be pursuing full custody of our unborn child. The recordings would ensure that he would never have any parental rights. The fifth envelope was the most devastating of all. It was from the district attorney's office, outlining the charges being filed against him: kidnapping, aggravated assault, domestic violence, criminal threats, and attempted murder. With the recordings, GPS evidence, and testimony from his own friends, Marcus was looking at 15 to 20 years in prison. As Marcus read these letters, he could hear police sirens getting closer. Sarah had timed everything perfectly. Just as Marcus finished reading the last letter, police officers were breaking down our front door. "Marcus Thompson, you're under arrest," Sarah announced as officers surrounded him. Marcus tried to run, but there was nowhere to go. As the handcuffs clicked around his wrists, he finally understood that his victim had become his destroyer. "You have the right to remain silent," Sarah continued, but Marcus was already screaming. "This is impossible. Emma's too weak to do this. She's nothing without me." "Actually," Sarah said calmly, "she's everything without you. And now the whole world will know exactly what kind of man you really are." As Marcus was led away in handcuffs, neighbors came out to watch. The man who had once seemed so successful and charming was now revealed as the monster he truly was. 6 months later, I gave birth to a healthy baby girl. Marcus was convicted on all charges and sentenced to 18 years in prison. His friends received shorter sentences in exchange for their testimony against him. I named my daughter Hope because that's what she represented. Hope for a future free from fear, free from abuse, and full of possibilities. Marcus had tried to destroy me, but instead I had destroyed the power he held over me. Sometimes the victim becomes the victor, and justice finds a way to prevail. The fairy tale was over, but my real life was just beginning.